And we are back with some Premier League predictions for game week 36. But as I normally do with all my Premier League predictions, we're going to take a look back at how I did in game week 35. Yeah, see if I got any predictions right or if I got any wrong. I think you can guess what's more likely. We're just going to start off with Bournemouth versus Chelsea. Now I predicted 2-1 to Bournemouth. It was 3-1 to Chelsea. And Chelsea finally grabbed a win under Frank Lampard to stop him becoming 007. Bournemouth held on for the most part before Solanke gave away a free kick from which Chelsea went ahead through Badiashile. Felix then struck late to truly end the tie. Yeah, I was banking on Bournemouth getting a good result there. Very unfortunate that they didn't. Come on guys, why you gotta do us like this, man? Then we move on to Manchester City versus Leeds United. I predicted 5-0 to City. It was 2-1. And Man City were complacent throughout this match with many chances missing the mark. Gundogan looked like the only City player who could finish his chances, but even he had his penalty saved. Should never been so close though. Big Sam is back, but he marked his return with a loss, so is what it is. That's the Leeds way, I guess. Then move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Aston Villa. I predicted 3-1 to Villa, 1-0 to Wolves, and Wolves held on to beat a Villa side that were largely dominant, to be fair. Wolves scored the only goal of the game 9 minutes in, with Sarr keeping the home side in the clash throughout, making brilliant saves. Villa did have good chances, but just couldn't find the back of the net. They just weren't clinical enough, and it cost them, really. Then move on to Tottenham Hotspur versus Crystal Palace. I predicted 3-2 to Palace. Again, it was 1-0 to Spurs. And Tottenham were a slightly more dominant side as Harry Kane was the only goal scorer of the match. He scored just before half time, and despite Palace's attempt trying to grab an equaliser, Tottenham held on and saw out an important win for their European hopes. And then move on to Liverpool versus Brentford. I predicted 2-0 to Liverpool. It was 1-0 to Liverpool. Liverpool grabbed their 6th successive Premier League win, which has seen them impressively fight back to challenge Manchester United for the Champions League. It was Salah again who scored to give Liverpool all 3 points. Brentford did try to salvage a point, but just could not manage it. Then we move on to Sunday's fixture, and we start with Newcastle United versus Arsenal. I predicted 1-0 to Newcastle, and it was 2-0 to Arsenal. Arsenal kept the title race alive as they handed Newcastle their 3rd league defeat at home. Odegaard opened the scoring through a beautiful strike before Cher turned into his own net. Newcastle still have work to do to show Champions League football next season, so they need to put this result behind them and turn around quickly. And then we move on to West Ham United versus Manchester United. I predicted 3-1 to Manchester United. It's actually 1-0 to West Ham United. West Ham grabbed a shock win over Manchester United, which gave them a 4-point cushion above the relegation zone. Manchester United haven't been in great form and fell to their 2nd successive loss as their European hopes begin to slip through their grasp. Very impressive from the Hammers though, especially with the European football they're playing right now as I'm recording this actually. And then move on to Monday, and what a day that was. I think it was 21 goals scored on Monday alone, and you're about to see why. But that is a new record for the Premier League, I believe. And we start with Fulham versus Leicester City. I predicted 1-0 to Fulham. It's actually 5-3. And Fulham ran riot in London as they battered the Foxes. The scoreline makes this game seem closer than it was, but Fulham were the thoroughly dominant side throughout. Maddison made no mistake from the spot this time though. Tom Kearney, he's a red. Then move on to Brighton and Hove Albion versus Everton. I predicted 4-0 to Brighton, and it was actually 5-1 to Everton. Everton took the game to the Seagulls and dominated, moving out of the relegation zone in very emphatic fashion. The Toffees opened the scoring within 34 seconds through Decore. Brighton, they had their fair share of chances, but just could not find the back of the net. And that 4th goal from Everton was a violation. And finally, Nottingham Forest versus Southampton. I predicted 2-0 to Forest. It was actually 4-3. What a game. A huge win for Forest, which saw them launch out of the relegation zone. Forest didn't make it easy for themselves, but a vital 3 points secured nonetheless. Danilo and Morgan Gibbs-White were massive for Forest, and it's a shame Felipe's goal didn't stand because that celebration was phenomenal. I didn't know a man that big could do a flip like that. But yeah, those were my Game Week 35 predictions, and I got 0 right. But I think the Monday football really does make up for it because that was something impressive. Anyway, we're going to move on now to Game Week 36, and hopefully we can get one result right. I feel like I say this a lot, but my standards are very low. Okay, and we're going to start with the Saturday fixtures and Leeds United versus Newcastle United. Big Sam's first home game in charge, and I'd be looking to grab some vital points in Leeds' quest for Premier League survival. It may be too early to count them out as he's only managed them against this insane City side, but Leeds did look a bit better than what we've seen. But not by much, I mean the ball was literally on the floor. Newcastle will be no pushovers though, they're fighting to secure their Champions League spot, and after a loss to Arsenal last week, we need to ensure they avoid dropping any more points for the rest of the season. Leeds dropped into the relegation zone after Everton grabbed that shock result over Brighton and currently found themselves 2 points from safety. Form is not on Leeds' side however, as they've only grabbed a single point from their last 5 matches, whereas Newcastle have grabbed 9 from their last 5. I'm going to say 3-1 to Newcastle. I can see Newcastle taking the 3 points back up north here. While they did fail to beat Arsenal, that match could have been very different with Newcastle putting up a big and very passionate fight. I think if they got given that penalty at the start, the match could have been very, very different. I can't see that result having much effect on this match, but it's still a very important clash for both sides nonetheless. I can see Big Sam setting up to frustrate Newcastle, but Leeds' backline is not great, and with the pressure we've seen Newcastle being able to apply, it's not looking good for them. But I don't think it'll be a cakewalk like many people are assuming, because Big Sam, he'll set up to frustrate Newcastle for sure. Then we move on to Southampton versus Fulham. Now this is another vital match for Southampton as they are in desperate need of points. Any points they can grab. Fulham's form has been up and down as of late, winning 2 and losing 3 of their last 5, but showed a very dominant performance against the Saints' relegation rivals Leicester. I'll be looking to continue that in Southampton. This is the first match that Mitrovic will be eligible for after serving his 8-game suspension, but it's not certain he'll be thrown back into the mixer, as the Serbian was probably not going to be match fit. I do think we'll see him make an appearance though. Southampton need to win all 3 of their matches to guarantee survival, and it is looking like an extremely tall order at the moment, as Fulham will be very tough opponents for the Saints to break down at St Mary's. I'm going to say 3-0 to Fulham. Like I said, Mitrovic is back after serving his suspension, and while I do expect him to make an appearance, it's probably going to be off the bench. But we've seen, as Fulham performed against Leicester, that they can score goals without him. I think it was 2 braces in their last match against Leicester, so if they play anything like that, then Southampton are finished. And this could actually be the match that relegates them, because if I remember rightly, they need to win all 3 of their last matches, plus they need to have Everton don't grab a point. And I can't see them beating Fulham, so it's not looking good for the Saints. They might as well just relegate themselves now, to be honest. Get it over and done with. And then move on to Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. Now this is another big clash for Forest as they travel to Chelsea just outside of the relegation zone for the first time in weeks, and they'll be looking to keep it that way. Chelsea have not been having a great season, with things not working out under Potter, whilst Frank did not get off to the greatest start either, although he did finally grab his first win as they left it late to beat Bournemouth. Arguably though, that came from a Cherry's mistake and not something Chelsea did themselves. Forest have shown much more fight on the road in these last away matches, with the game against Liverpool really showing that, and with the confidence growing from a huge home wins against Brighton and Southampton. Forest will be going into this clash feeling like they can get something, and I honestly believe we can. We've seen brilliant link-up plays between Gibbs White, Danilo, Johnson and Awoniyi. Danilo has been in some great form recently with 3 goals in 3 games, and I can see him bagging here as well. Chelsea are going through an injury crisis at the moment, and almost have as many players out as Forest, but with their winter additions they can still field a very strong 11. I'm going to say 1-1. I think each side will be looking forward to this match. Chelsea haven't been in great form, whereas Forest are only 3 points clear of the relegation zone and are still leaky in defence. It'll be a very interesting clash, and I can see the sides sharing the points in London, but I do think either side has the potential to win it though. Come on Forest, we can do this. We can get one final away win of the season, because I don't see us beating Palace. Spoiler alert. And then move on to Aston Villa versus Tottenham Hotspur. 2 sides battling for Europe as Tottenham travel to Birmingham to face Aston Villa. Villa have seen a drop in form recently, losing their last 2 matches, and it's seen them slide down the table as a consequence. Spurs haven't been in great form either though, losing 3 of their last 5 and only winning once. Yikes, that's not European chasing form at all. Spurs season has been really disappointing by their standards, dropping out of the Champions League and also sliding out of their Europa League spot. Villa have been on a tremendous run since sacking Gerrard, finding themselves 8th and still within sniffing distance of Europe. I'm saying 2-1 to Villa. I can see Villa returning to winning ways here. Villa are definitely a better side at home, as I think most sides are, and Tottenham have not been brilliant on the road this season. Although saying that, Villa did beat Spurs in the reverse fixture, so this could make it their first double over Spurs since the 95-96 season. Spurs don't really have any other goal scorers that they can count on other than Kane, and I can see him scoring here to be honest, but Villa do have a wealth of goal scorers at their disposal, and that Spurs defence isn't great at the best of times. Should make for a very interesting clash though. Then move on to Manchester United versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. A big big match for the United as they look to restart their European hopes after losing in both their last matches. Only 1 point separates them in Europa League football, and Wolves on the other hand have successfully escaped the clutches of the relegation zone and will be looking to end the season on a high. Manchester United have seemingly dropped off since they won the Carabao Cup, and that has seen them slowly slide down the table as a result, and while they do still occupy a Champions League spot, that has come under threat. Wolves' form has been very up and down recently, winning 3 and losing 2 in the last 5, and despite the massive loss to Brighton, have given a good account of themselves in those past matches, and I have no doubt they will in Manchester too. I'm going to say 2-1 to United. I do think United will go a massive 3 points here for their European hopes, but I can't see the West Midlands side making it easy for United. Wolves know how to set up and make it tough for sides, and I can see them doing that here. United have not been in great form in recent matches, but I can see them beating Wolves as they're in major need of a win, especially if they need that Champions League football, which I'm pretty certain they're aiming for. And then we move on to Crystal Palace versus Bournemouth. 14th place Bournemouth travel to London to face 12th place Palace, with just a point separating the two sides. Palace's form has been on the up recently, but it's waved. Recently losing 2 of their last 5 and drawing 1-2. So, while Roy has gone Palace playing better football, there's still work for them to do. Bournemouth have also had another down season, but currently found themselves 9 points clear of the drop, so look pretty safe in my opinion. Bournemouth have had some fantastic results recently, but did fail to hold on against Chelsea, and that was a Chelsea side that not won in 7 league matches, so come on. You should have done something at least. I'm going to say 2-0 to Palace. Both sides were looking to put last week's result behind them. I think Palace will be the side to do that. Palace are a squad with a lot of attacking threat from all over the field and will cause plenty of problems for Bournemouth. Luckily for the Cherries though, Bournemouth have Neto in net, who's been a very decent keeper this season and will be a big part in saving their blushes. But I can see it being a Crystal Palace domination job, because this is just the type of game that they are going to boss. 2-0 may be a conservative estimate to be honest, but we'll see. And then we move on to the Sunday fixtures, and we start with Everton versus Manchester City. Everton host currently leaders Manchester City after a brilliant result on the road. That result saw Everton leap out of the relegation zone, currently sitting in 17th, but are only 2 points clear of the drop. That huge win will have galvanised the squad and filled them with confidence going into their final 3 matches, which could be huge in their bid for Premier League survival. Manchester City continue their long lossless run and currently sit a point clear and a game in hand at the top of the league. City played at a 1-1 draw in Madrid on Tuesday, so we could see some squad rotation as Pep prepares for the reverse fixture in Manchester, which is the following week. But even a rotated Manchester City squad will still be a very strong side and will still cause Everton a lot of problems. I'm saying 3-0 to City. I can see Man City keeping their run going on Merseyside. As mentioned, there's a very good chance that Pep rotates his squad. Even with that being said, this is going to be a very strong squad and will still cause problems for Everton. There's a good chance we'll see Haaland being rested for the all-important Wednesday clash, though he could come on as a sub or start and play 60 minutes, who knows. Everton performed far better than anyone expected against Brighton, although need something very special to stop this Manchester City side, and I don't think Everton have that. And I don't think that's a controversial take either. And then move on to Brentford vs West Ham United. It's a London derby as the Bees host West Ham in West London. Brentford's recent form has been up and down, but they currently find themselves in mid-table after playing some good football this season. The Brentford Community Stadium has been the scene of some great results for the Bees and will be looking to add to that against the Hammers. West Ham do find themselves 7 points clear of the relegation zone and find themselves in European Conference League semi-final as well, which could see them rotating their squad as they aim for their first major trophy since 1980. This could see West Ham field a weaker side to face Brentford, which would only help the Bees. And I'm going to say 2-1 to Brentford. I see West Ham doing exactly that. I can see them placing more emphasis on the chance to claim some silverware over this clash in which they are currently safe in the relegation zone. Brentford are a far better side at home, but do keep having some lapses in defence, which can allow the side to slip in the odd goal. I do see Brentford keeping West Ham relatively quiet though, especially if they do rotate their squad. West Ham do not have near the squad depth of Manchester City, so while they can rotate, the squad will be severely weaker because of it. And then we move on to Arsenal versus Brighton And Hove Albion. Arsenal host Brighton as they aim to stay in the title race and take it to the final day. Arsenal did have a wobble recently, dropping points in 3 of their last 5 matches, but they look to have put that behind them with their wins against Chelsea and Newcastle, and will be full of confidence going into this clash. Brighton, on the other hand, are coming off the back of a huge loss to Everton, in their own backyard as well, and will be looking to put that behind them at the Emirates. A defeat of that magnitude is an anomaly for Brighton, but it'll be interesting to see what De Zerbi changes for this clash. Arsenal have had a brilliant season and are still in the title race, and if Man City do drop points, Arsenal do have the potential to overtake their title rivals. I can see this race going all the way to the final day. Brighton plays some brilliant attacking football, looks very good, and cause a lot of teams problems, but so can Arsenal, so it'll be a very interesting clash between these two sides. I'm going to say 3-2 to Arsenal though. I can see this being a very close clash. Both sides have been playing some good football this season, have been having great seasons respectively as well. Brighton could still grab a European spot, but that would require them to go on a crazy winning run, although crazy things have happened. But I do reckon Arsenal will continue to keep it competitive with City, despite them having a game in hand. Then move on to Monday's fixture and Leicester City vs Liverpool. Leicester dropped into the relegation zone after getting demolished by Fulham, with Everton and Forest picking up some vital points. They host a Liverpool side who's got their season back on track and are hunting for Champions League football. They're in touching distance of another season within the Champions League, and with a big rebuild needed, they need that alert to bring in those quality players they so desire. Leicester are in free fall at the moment, and bringing in Dean Smith has not improved their performances. This is another tough clash for Leicester as they desperately need points to push for survival. Against this resurgent Liverpool though, that looks like a very tall order. I'm saying 3-1 to Liverpool. I can't really see Leicester getting much here. Liverpool are a side that have turned around their form after a not so great campaign which saw them drop out of all cup competitions and sit around the middle of the table. Now they have fought back and shot up the table since, and look like a very strong side once again. Leicester don't look up for these tough clashes, but with talented players like Maddison, Barnes and Tielemans at their disposal, they will always have a little threat about them. But I can't see them causing Liverpool much problems though, especially with confidence that's got to be really low at the moment. And finally, the Tuesday fixture of Newcastle United vs Brighton And Hove Albion. Newcastle host Brighton at St James's Park in what could be a very important match for the Magpies' European hopes. Eddie Howe's done a brilliant job so far, or should I say Jason Tindall, with Newcastle currently occupying a Champions League spot and looking pretty good for finishing there too. Brighton have also had a good season under De Zerbi, playing some lovely attacking football, but have also had some shocking results recently as well. It'll be a very interesting clash between the two sides as they do play some similar football, with a lot of quality in each side and a lot of attacking threat too. I'm saying 2-1 to Newcastle. I do think the Magpies will beat the Seagulls here. Newcastle are a brilliant side at home, only losing a few times throughout the entire season. I think it's 3, maybe 4. St James's is a fortress for them at the moment. The atmosphere that place generates is class and will definitely be the 12th man for Newcastle. Brighton took a battering at home by Everton, so their confidence won't be as high as it can be, and that will have effect on the squad, no doubt. However, it could bounce back depending on the result against Arsenal, so it's going to be a very good match to watch nonetheless. Yeah, we're going to see some lovely attacking football in full flow here, and I'm excited for it. So yeah, those have been my Game Week 36 Premier League predictions. If you have any of your own, please leave them in the comments below. But I've been O2GT, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.